Iran war is no longer just a military conflict. It is rapidly becoming an economic shockwave for the entire world. Global markets open the week in turmoil. Oil prices surged sharply, with Brent crude jumping more than 20%, briefly touching $114 a barrel. It is the biggest single-day spike since the pandemic. And when oil moves like this, the entire global economy feels the tremor. Stock market across Asia plunged. Futures in the United States are also pointing sharply lower. The fear is simple: expensive oil means expensive living. Higher fuel prices push up the cost of transport, manufacturing and food. The fuels that inflation squeezes household budgets and makes it harder for central banks to cut interest rates. And there is another worry. Iran's military has warned that the oil infrastructure across the region could become targets if Israeli strikes on Iranian facilities continue. Across the Gulf, energy and economic infrastructure are under threat, and we are already seeing signs of how wide this battlefield could become. For instance, in Bahrain, drones struck a desalination plant while a missile targeted the Bapco energy refinery. If these attacks intensify, the consequences could be enormous. Iranian military warns oil prices could shoot up to $200 per barrel if conflict continues.
آمریکای جنایت پیشه و رژیم درمانده صهیونیستی با توجه به اینکه از آغاز تهاجم به ایران اسلامی دستاوردی جز کشتن کودکان بیگناه و معصوم و زنان و مردان بیدفاع و غیر نظامی نداشتند، علیرغم ادعاهای واهی و ریاکارانه و ژست جانبداری و دفاع از مردم ایران، علاوه بر کشتن غیر نظامیان و به خاک و خون کشیدن آنان، پا را فراتر از این گذاشته تا جایی که در تهاجم‌های وحشیانه بی حد و مرز جدید خود بخشایی از زیرساخت‌های سوخت، انرژی و مراکز خدمت‌رسانی متعلق به مردم را آماج هجوم وحشیانه خود قرار دادند. نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران با عنایت جدی نسبت به منافع مردم مسلمان مستقر در کشورهای منطقه، با وجود اشراف اطلاعاتی، توانمندی هجومی و شناسایی تمامی زیرساخت‌های سوخت، انرژی و خدمات عمومی در منطقه، تاکنون از هر گونه اقدام مشابه خودداری نمودند و اگر تحمل نفت بیش از بشکه‌ای $200 را دارید، این بازی را ادامه دهید.
So the big question is no longer just about the battlefield. Can the world economy survive another oil shock? Indian government, on the other hand, has said they are ramping up the gas production. There will be no rise in the petrol prices or diesel prices. Enough aviation turbine fuel is available. There has been no problem when it comes to a strategic reserve. In context of India, things are good. Even the 25-day wait for LPG is to prevent hoarding. And diesel and petrol prices are to remain stable. This is in context of India. The government, through sources, has clarified on this issue. I'm joined by Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, former ambassador to WTO, and Pathikrit Prem, senior research fellow, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation. Thank you both of you for joining me. Let me straight away go to Ujjwal Singh Bhatia. Sir, today the Reuters reported that there will be a meeting of G7 very soon, and they'll take the decision to release 400 million barrels of oil. Do you think that these knee-jerk reactions or these knee-jerk decisions will be able to calm down the larger global supply of oil, or they will only work in short term?
I think that the defining dynamic of this war as of now is uncertainty. We do not know about the trajectory of this war. We do not know about the timelines, when it's expected to end. So any thoughts on this issue as of now can merely be speculative. I think one of the biggest problems is that with the decapitation of the Iranian leadership, there is nobody for people to negotiate with. And the IRGC itself has split into, some say, around 31 different command centers which are autonomous.
Yes.
And therefore, there is little coordination between them. Now, these reflect growing uncertainty, as do the Israeli attacks on Iranian oil facilities on Saturday, and the US attacks on Iranian tankers today. And God forbid, if Kharg Island is attacked, and that handles around 80% of Iranian exports, the fat will really be in the fire. So as of now, I think the G7 initiative is only, I do not think it can restore confidence to the markets. It is not so much the closure of Hormuz by Iran, which is important, but the fact that the insurance market has collapsed and the London reinsurers are unwilling to underwrite this kind of colossal risk involved in reinsuring movements of VLCC tankers. So overall, we see an environment of uncertainty. We do not know what tomorrow will bring. But as far as India is concerned, I think there is no cause for panic. The macroeconomic fundamentals are strong. The government has given certain assurances,
Yes.
very credible assurances about oil and gas supply. And I think we should be comfortable as far as the present is concerned.
Okay, Pathikrit, my question is slightly technical. You know, India has diversified its oil sources purchase, but when it comes to gas, which is LPG and LNG, we have few countries dependent. Will that be a pain point? Can that be a pain point?
Well, absolutely, yes. It is going to be for quite some time. It may not be in the short run, but in the long run, you have to find alternates. And we have to understand that from Russia, we aren't just taking oil. It has a huge potential for selling gas as well. One of the biggest exports of Russia to Europe before the war started on Ukraine has been gas and not oil. So you have to diversify and find out every other means which bypasses the Middle East. That has to be done. See, let's understand one thing. I think we will fundamentally make a mistake if we presume that inflation, panic, a rise in price was not one of the part of the agenda of this conflict. That is one thing we have to be very careful about, because if you look at the common line or thread that connects the restrictions on Russian oil, capturing of the Venezuelan oil, and what is happening in Middle East, all the three countries have been selling oil in non-dollar denominations. And that is where there's a problem fundamentally the West and especially United States always had. That any country which wants to sell oil or gas in non-dollar denomination, they consider it as a direct challenge to the dollar. And for a country which has $39 trillion of debt, the only way they can sustain the price and the value of dollar is by exporting inflation. What better way to export inflation if you can do it by raising the price of oil? And let's understand, whether it's war or whether it's the energy market, rise in price is not bad for those who are involved in the business. It's big money. The insurance companies make a lot of money. The hedge funds make a lot of money. The investment banking companies make a lot of money. And so they're okay with it. It's not that the West came to this war, especially United States, to create a better world, to reform Middle East and to stabilize the price of oil. The reason that India has consistently maintained equidistance, whether it's from the Russia-Ukraine war or the Middle East war, is because India understands what actually is happening. That's why we have diversified. And the diversification is not just in case of oil, it's with gas as well. I think it's very clear. Number one, we have worked out a route, the Vladivostok-Chennai route, which bypasses the whole of Mediterranean route or the Red Sea route and now the Strait of Hormuz. The Vladivostok-Chennai route is one area where you have complete relative security, if not entire security. That's one thing that has been worked out. And secondly, you will very soon find that via Russia, through Russia, whether it is directly with Russia or the Central Asian countries, you would have major gas deals happening, because that's the only way you can sustain your economy, because there are certain countries who do not want the non-dollar denominated energy supply to countries like China and India. There is a thought process in many of the Western think tanks that China is today's problem, India is going to be the problem for tomorrow. And that you could see that echo in some of the top leaders coming and speaking about openly that we will not make the same mistake with India as we have done with China. So let's understand, the premise of this war is not to create a better de-radicalized Middle East. It's about controlling the source of energy, controlling source of energy itself creates a lot of leverage for Washington. Now, the problem is they may have miscalculated. They did not anticipate the kind of retaliation, the kind of response they're getting from Iran, and that this war is going to be long drawn. What happens then? Well, then it's a completely different thing. And I think India has worked it out. It's not that India has not anticipated it. We have been pretty okay in terms of ensuring that if it goes to 50 days, you will see major deals happening with Central Asia.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Ambassador. In your opinion, how long can we avoid the sticker shock in terms of oil prices?
Well, as I said, the defining dynamic now is uncertainty. So it would be stupid for me to speculate as to how long this thing is going to last. But for the moment, and I'm talking about, let us say, for the next 2 months or so, I think India has the basics in place. India has the supply lines in place. India has the financial resources in place to bear this pain. We certainly hope that this matter will be resolved in that time frame. But the question is, as Patrikrit has said, the pain must affect all, not only the third parties. And it's only when the United States and Israel start to feel the pain that we will see some urgency in negotiations to conclude this. But for the moment, because of the leadership vacuum in Iran, really, I don't see how this negotiation can be held till such time as Mujtaba and his group consolidate their power over the IRGC.
So going by this, do you think that America can sustain that pain for a long period of time? I think they're self-sufficient when it comes to oil, shale, gas.
I think the issue is about the American financial markets and specifically the treasury bills. Yes. And once we have a run on the bonds and the T-bills action starts, I think there will be a domestic political reaction in the United States economy, and considering that the United States is going to midterms in November, I think there will be a policy review. But so far, the pain of the war has not touched the United States as much as it has other countries. For instance, gasoline prices have increased, but quite moderately compared to, say, Europe or other places. But it's only when the food bills start rising, gasoline starts rising, and the financial markets react that we will see some response in the United States.
Particularly, it's very ironical that, this is the first time when America has gone into a war, the ratings of the president of the United States of America has not soared, No, but it looks like, he's getting immune to his domestic public opinion. There is no rating surge. Polls are saying 54 to 60% of the Americans are against this war. He's gone back on his own words of those endless, everlasting wars. But he has continued.
Well, you have to understand many of these presidents sometimes are helpless when it comes to this conflict. They are inevitable. I mean, they just have to agree to that. That's how probably I don't know whether I'm permitted to use the word deep state or not, but that's how it works out. Secondly, yes, I think what happened in case of
Iran I don't think any big brother is watching you here. So you can use the word
let
deep
them
state.
watch. Let them watch. I have said it many times. The issue is this, that, the Venezuelan success is something that gave us a sense of confidence that if we do it, we can do it very soon and we'll be back home and we can say that we are victorious. We are the ones who are actually giving freedom to the world. The problem is what Iran is doing is something dangerous. What is dangerous? That it's no more about the security of the Strait of Hormuz. They are actually targeting the critical energy infrastructure of the Arab states, which have flourished at the cost of sanctions on Iran for a long period of time. So even when the Strait of Hormuz gets taken care of, like it becomes safe, the infrastructure hit on the energy, supply chain is so profound that it will take months for them to get it recovered or repaired. Then what happens? So then by the time the midterm happens, I think Iran is actually banking of that. They target the critical energy infrastructure and, impound, casualties, so that by the time the midterm comes, there will be questions. If you look at the body language of many of the American leaders, you don't see them, they're showing a kind of desperation. These are not the language that we hear now of those who are actually in control of what is happening. In any case, there is never a control when it comes to a conflict in Middle East. Conflicts in Middle East have always been prolonged. You talk about a conflict from 1980 to 1988 between Iraq and Iran. That those days Saddam Hussein was the darling of United States and Saudi Arab. That war went for eight years, and even then there was a ceasefire with done by United Nations. They could not defeat Iran. Look, I have no sympathy for the Iranian regime. We know how radicalized and what all they have done. But I think the war gaming that they did with all the artificial intelligence in place did not anticipate the kind of asymmetric warfare capability maybe Iran has worked upon, where they're okay with being in complete poverty and still fighting for it. This is where the problem is. If you see these visuals that you're showing, this is what the Arab states are not ever faced. The Arab states never presumed that they will be the ones targeted. I think
it's like robbing of their equity. It's like robbing them of their equity. Safe haven, tax-free place, disciplined society. You can come work and go back home. You never expected their hotels, desalination plant, electric grids, all would be attacked.
And if you see, I think the biggest anguish that the Iranians have, and you can find that out, is because they think that every missile or fighter plane which goes into Iran travels to the Arab airspace, and none of them stop it. None of them give the early warning message to the Iranians. And secondly, they have flourished at the cost of the sanctions on Iran. So they are hitting the ones. If they're just saying that even if the Israelis don't want this war to happen, the Arabs would have forced it to happen. That's the sectarian violence, the sectarian part of this conflict. It's not just about Iran versus Israel. There are sectarian aspects, there are ethnic aspects.
There's a huge and a deep Shia-Sunni dividing line. I mean, say it was unbridgeable in past. It looks like unbridgeable even today.